Hello everyone, good morning. Welcome to my channel Explore and Learn by NK. So here I am here with the part 2. As I promised that MuleSoft interview questions for 2026, I'll come up with the part 2 as well. So here we go. Uh, as I think you have gone through the part 1, so I have discussed on various topics for the part 1, but now it's time for part 2. So in part 2, I'll just directly jump into the table of contents. So we can, this is very useful for 2 to 4 years of MuleSoft developers who is having 2 to 4 years of experience. So you can go through this video till the end, and then I am damn sure that you will definitely have a good idea of how you can crack the interview. So after completion of part 1, this is the part 2, and in part 2, I'll be covering on these topics. So these are the topics which is more, essential, and it will give you an edge over other developer. So if you understand the security, messaging, advanced data weave logic, which is very core thing, and reliability and transactions, and advanced error handling, although we have covered this error handling in part 1 as well, and data weave logic part 1 as well I have covered, but this is little bit advanced version. And the performance and deployment, how we can what are the questions it can come for the performance and deployment, and logging best practices. So interviewer can want to understand your approach of logging, what would be the best practices we should follow. And repo and branching strategy, this is also one of the important thing. Interviewers, if you tell them interviewers, then they will definitely impressed. And CI/CD and DevOps, the little bit knowledge would be required to understand you are aware of CI/CD process. And if you are aware of 10, 11, and 12 points, points number 10, 11, and 12 for ACB, MuleSoft Vibes, and MuleSoft Model Context Protocol. So you will definitely be, uh, mm, I mean, you will definitely stay ahead of other candidates. But so you need to go through all these topics and watch till the end, then we'll just cover. Okay. So this security. So say for security for 2 to 4 years, they can ask. Okay, and this is a very tricky questions that if you understand the security life cycle or not, to assess yours approach. So authentication is means who are you? Whether you are the correct person, you are the verifying the identity of the users. We can you can tell the okay we can apply the authentication using client ID enforcement or basic authentication, OAuth. So this is the thing to authenticate. Means in simple word, who are you? Okay, whether you are a let's suppose there is a university, and all professors should enter into that university, right? There is a restriction for any other person. So this authenticate first, okay, whether you are a professor or not. And then comes the authorization. What can you do? Means whether in computer department only computer science professor can enter. In civil engineering department only the civil engineering department professors can enter. Means authorization means what you can do, whether you are authorized to do or not. So verifying the permissions of an already authenticated user. So we can say scopes in OAuth or role-based access control. And then in MuleSoft, authentication usually happens at the API gateway level. Policy means policies. So in API Manager, we can apply policies like rate limiting or client ID enforcement policy. So you should go through this client ID enforcement policy. You can explain, okay, I have applied the client ID enforcement policy to secure my API. So while authorization often involves logic inside the Mule flow, right? Checking scopes or JWT claims for Okta. So this one you should explain means authorization and authentication. What are the difference? What is the difference between authentication and authorization? So we can say authentication is just verifying the identity of the user, and authorization verifying the permission, right? So API security policies, like API manager, we can apply the policies, and there are certain out of the box policies which MuleSoft has provided. First one is like we can say client-side enforcement. So how does client-side enforcement policy work in Cloud Hug? So we can say it requires the consumer to send a client ID in secret. It only works in API auto if API auto discovery is configured to link the app to the API manager. So API auto discovery we have covered in the part one. If you are not aware, you can just go and watch the part one of this series. And then basic auth versus client-side enforcement. So what is the technical difference between basic auth and client-side enforcement? So basic auth usually validates against a static file and or a hard-coded list, right? But client-side enforcement validates against the independent platform's registered client application and the contracts. And now IP whitelisting and blacklisting, right? So normally IP whitelisting we can apply in the system API. When would we use IP whitelisting instead of a client and enforcement? So we can use IP whitelisting for system to system communication, where you know the exact source, right? Suppose process API is only invoking system API, so we can add a extra layer of security so that we know the process API IP, right? So we can whitelist that API in the system API so that always it will be validated, right? And now OAuth versus JWT. So OAuth 2 explain the provider versus enforcement policy. So an OAuth provider like Okta, Ping, or Mule's own provider issues the token, and a OAuth enforcement policy validates the token sent by the client. And when it comes to JWT validation policy, why use JWT instead of a standard OAuth? This question also very, oftenly asked. So JWT JSON Web Token is stateless, but the Mule API can validate the token using a public key or secret without having to call an external identity provider. So every single time, which improves performance. So it doesn't need to call external identity provider every time. So so JWT is much more faster than OAuth. And what is the scopes? How do you handle the scopes in Mule 4? So after the OAuth policy validate the token, the scopes are available in the Mule attributes, attributes.properties.scopes. So we can then use the choice router to allow or deny access to a specific parts of the flow. So that's how we can use scopes. And there is another one, secure properties. Like we should not expose or add plain, credentials in the properties file. So instead, we can store sensitive credentials in uh, database or in secure properties. So how do you store sensitive credentials like database password in a Mule project? So we can say we can use Mule secure configuration properties extension or encrypt values using the secure properties tool with the algorithm like AES, Blowfish, or any other algorithm, and store them in a YAML or properties file using the syntax exclamation, then bracket, and then encrypted value. Then never hardcode the encryption key in the code, so pass it is at runtime properties. So we can pass the run encryption key as this hyphen D encryption dot key equal to mule key, whatever key we have specifies in Cloud Hub. So this is which one is the best and based on the complexity. So basic auth best is best for internal and simple integrations. So the complexity is very low. It's very straightforward. Client and enforcement is standard API-led experience process layers. Complexity is little bit, yeah, we can say medium. So and OAuth is public facing APIs we can use for external experience API, mobile and partner access, and JWT is also high performance and distributed microservices. So this is how we can explain about the security. Now it comes to messaging. If they ask, okay, how we can suppose if the process is asynchronous process and how we can ensure the guaranteed delivery to the target system. So we can tell, okay, with the using of messaging and with a queue, we can guarantee the delivery to the target system. So as app grows, they need to communicate without waiting for each other. So with for this we can use queue. So what is the difference between topic and queue? And when would we use topic instead of a queue? So topic is to publish and subscriber is the queue. So use a queue for the point-to-point, one sender, one receiver. But we can use topic for a broadcast. So one sender and then multiple subscribers. So multiple consumers can subscribe to that topic. So such as sending an order placed even to both shipping and billing systems. So if suppose order is placed, so it will publish, we can publish this order placed information to the topic, and if we have suppose shipping and billing queues, so that both can subscribe to that topic and we can consume they can consume the message, the same message. And how do we ensure the exactly once processing an endpoint MQ? So we can mention that message ID deduplication provided the MQ and using the FIFO queue it if a strict ordering is required, first in, first out. What is the dead letter queue and when should a message to be sent there? So a dead letter queue stores message that failed to a process after multiple retry attempts, whatever retry attempts if we configure in properties. So it prevents poison messages from blocking the main queue. Means if suppose the let's say there is a scenario, we have a RAML where we have enforced some properties. So if center has sent some other properties which is not mentioned and which is mandatory, but so it fall into bad request, right? So no matter how many times it will execute, it will always go to bad request, right? It will never succeed it. So if suppose we have configured the 5 times multiple retry, maximum retry attempts, so if after 5 times it is sent to a dead letter queue. Uh, Now we can talk about advanced data weave logic. So we have seen in part two some of the data weave. So you have to ensure that you must practice the data weave using the data weave playground MuleSoft has provided. So we can manipulate data structures efficiently. So how do you the question comes how do you map a payload when the field names are only known at runtime? Means dynamic selectors. So we can use dynamic selectors or this bracket is syntax to evaluate keys dynamically. Example using the vars.field name, then payload.value. And the lookup functions are trade-off. Why it is generally discouraged to use lookup functions inside data we map for larger data sets. So lookup calls a mule flow and it used inside a map of thousand, let's say 10,000 records, and it triggers the flow 10,000 times, causing massive performance overhead. So with the consideration of the performance, it is not advised to use lookup functions inside a data weave map. If data weave, so better way use a join logic or prefetch data into a variable. So you can use, data weave is a very broad topic, so you can just practice your DataWeave script in DataWeave Playground. And reliability and transactions, this is very important topic. So how do you design a flow to ensure zero data loss if the Mule server crashes mid-process? So we can say start with the transactional source like JMS or virtual machine persistent and wrap the logic in the transactional scope. If the flow fails or the server dies, the message stays in the source queue to be retried later. So that's how we can, ensure the reliability pattern. For the advanced data error handling, yeah, expect scenario-based questions here. So we can see on error continue when we can use on error continue and on error propagate. So on error continue catches the error executes logic and return a success HTTP 200 response, 200 or 201 to the parent or caller flow. But on error propagate, yeah, catches the errors, execute logic, and rethrows the error to the parent, returning the error. It's 500 series or 400 series. How do you handle errors in the subflow? So since subflow doesn't have their own error handlers, so the error bubbles up to the parent flow's error handler. So it is being handled in the parent's flow. So this is how advanced error handling when we can, say, I mean, this is the segregated components. So HTTP status is on error propagate to return 500 custom error code, and in on error continue to 200. Flow execution in on error propagate, it stops immediately, and on error continues to the next processor. Transaction is rolls back, and in on error continue it commits successful as far as the app knows, right? And parent flow, parent moves to its own error handler, and in on error continue, parent continues as if no error happens. So in on error continue, it suppresses the error. Then performance and deployment. So how do you handle large payloads? So we can use streaming and batch processing. Explain that batch jobs. I have explained in the part one. So if you are not aware, you can just watch part one. I have explained in a very detailed thing with all the steps of the batch processing. So explain that batch jobs split data into records to prevent out of memory errors. And what is a worker in Cloud Hub? So we can say a worker is a dedicated instance of Mule runtime. We can scale by increasing worker size, vcores, or worker count. That is horizontal scaling. Worker count, we can say horizontal scaling, and vertical scaling is increasing vcores. Okay. And what is the object store V2 used for? So I've explained in part one as well. So we can store state, caching, and sharing data between workers and flows in the object store V2. So what are the logging best practices? So standard versus structured logging. Why is logging in JSON format preferred in MuleSoft production environment? Because systems like the Splunk or Elasticsearch, Kibana can parse JSON fields automatically. So it reads automatically, making it easier to run queries like index equal to, Mule APIs and status equals to without complex regular expression. And correlation ID, this is the golden rule. So how do we track the single transaction across three different APIs, system, process, and experience? So we can use a correlation ID. We should log the correlation ID at the start of and end of the every flow in Mule. So this is automatically generated as a correlation ID, but you must ensure it is passed in the HTTP header with the example X correlation ID to the next API, so that the same correlation ID will be used to log the message. And logging at scale. So how do you avoid performance bottlenecks caused by excessive logging? So suppose we have multiple logging, so how we can ensure the performance? So never log the entire payload in production. If it is large, you use log levels properly. Info. This is entry, exit points, and business milestones. Debug it if detailed mapping data only enabled during troubleshooting. And error exception details and stack traces. This log levels we can use properly. Repo and branching strategy. So if we are using Git Hub or Bitbucket or any other repo, so describe the branching strategy you have used in your recent project. This question may be asked, so we can answer. Most MuleSoft teams use Git flow. So feature branch first is master main branch, that is stable production code. Then we have a release branch created from develop for the final UAT testing, and then we have a develop for the integration branch for the next release, and we can check out in developers can check out the develop branch, and then make feature branch to create to change for a specific ticket or implement a specific Jira ticket. So this is how the branching strategy. And handling shared resources. How you manage a shared RAML fragment or common Java library used for multiple projects? So we can use Anypoint Exchange, and for API fragments, and a private Maven repo like Nexus or JFrog for Java jars. or custom connectors. So never copy paste code between repos. So we can share that those YAML fragments and Java common Java mm, jars. So for 2 to 4 years of experience, interviewers expect developers to understand at least CI/CD and DevOps process, not in the detailed view, but yeah, the pipeline flows and Maven plugin. So these things we have to understand. So at this level, you should understand how your code goes from Anypoint Studio to the cloud. So we can explain the stages of the CI/CD pipeline for a Mule application. So the expected answer would be first we have to build the Maven compiles the code and download dependencies. Then a unit runs. Most organization requires 80% code coverage to pass this stage, and then package. Then a deployable jar is created and then deploy. So the jar is pushed to runtime using the Mule Maven plugin. So most organization have a Jenkins job. So the first step is to build and then run the M unit. Then it is deployable jar is created. Then it will deploy to the runtime manager. And what is the role of the Mule Maven plugin in the POM.xml? So it handles the deployment configuration, specifying the worker size, environment, and any secure properties needed at runtime. M unit in CI/CD. So what happens if an M unit test fails or it falls less than 80% coverage? Let's say it requires 80% coverage to pass this stage. So what will happen if if the M unit coverage is less than 80%? So the pipeline should fail immediately. Code should never be deployed if unit test is failed or the it doesn't meet the required coverage. So it will immediately fail at this stage and it will not move to the next stage. Now the next three topics is very important, and if you are aware of these three topics, then you will definitely be the first person. I think you will be very. I mean, you will have an edge when it comes to interview. Uh, when it comes to impress the interviewer. So independent code builder, now we have more MuleSoft is asking us to move from independent studio to ACB because it's new IDE frontier and it's AI and it is VS code based and it's lightweight. So what is the primary architecture difference between Studio and ACB? They can ask. So a Studio is Eclipse based and heavy. We can say Anypoint Code Builder is VS Code based and allowing for unified experience across local desktop and web browsers as well. So it is browser based as well. We can use ACB, and the key feature is command palette. It's the same. It's the heart of ACB for scaffolding APIs and deployment. How does ACB improves the design first approach? So it eliminates the context switch. We can design the YAML OS, mock it, and implement the flows in the same window using the MuleDX extension. So we have to first install this VS Code and then we have to install the Anypoint extension pack. So once we install the Anypoint extension pack, so all the required dependencies will be uh, all the required dependencies will be installed, and then we are ready to go to use Anypoint Code Builder. And if we start using Anypoint Code Builder, it's very lightweight and it's really user friendly. So MuleSoft is every month they are fixing any bugs, if any, and then improving the performance. Now MuleSoft Vibes, okay, formerly known as MuleSoft DevAgent. So it is AI powered developer, we can say. So what is the role of MuleSoft DevAgent if interviewer is asking? So it acts as a pair programmer that can, generate DataWeave, even auto-generate unit tests, suggest fixes and for transformation errors. So if we have MuleSoft Vibes enabled for our organization, so we can use the natural language like create a Salesforce system API for accounts, entity, and contact objects. So it will create right complete projects. So it can create complete and even right from the design API specification until the deployment. So it can design API specification in OS or YAML, whatever we can input the prompt. Then it can implement all the APIs for all the given endpoints. It can generate the DataWeave script. It can generate M-unit test cases for both happy and negative path. So it can, earlier if we used to take 5 days to create and design an API and deploy an API. So now it can be done in one day as well. So it will take 30 to 1 hour, 30 minutes to for MuleSoft vibes to generate, and then we have to go and then add business logic and so, tweak the code which wherever required. So we can just note that the dev agent is not replacing developer. It's removing the boilerplate, right? Work this focus on logic. We can developer can focus on logic and let the agent handle the syntax. Now, yeah, this model context protocol. So it is connecting AI to integration. So with the using of MCP, MuleSoft support the agentic ecosystem. So if we have supposed we have endpoint in MuleSoft API, and if we are integrating with Cursor or AWS Bedrock or any other AI client, so they can also directly invoke our MuleSoft API. But if we have 100 endpoints and if we want to give only one endpoint, unified endpoints to invoke, so MuleSoft endpoints, we can transform our existing endpoints to MCP servers. So that MCP servers we can expose to the AI client, and then AI client can invoke MCP servers, and then internally MCP servers decide okay which tools we need to invoke and which REST API we need to invoke. So through the MuleSoft model context protocol, it allows Mule flows to be exposed as a tools or actions that LLM can tell. There are different use cases in nowadays. So like suppose an AI bot asking a Mule flow to fetch the last 5 invoices from SAP. So it will call the respective MuleSoft MCP tool, and then further it will invoke the MuleSoft endpoints, and it will fetch the result. So MuleSoft is becoming the nervous system for AI. So by using MCP, our integrations become the hands and feet of large language model. So MCP, if you know, it's a really very very critical, and it's nowadays. So MuleSoft has provided this MCP connector, so we can use MCP to um, expose our existing endpoint as an MCP tool, so that AI it is so we can say it's AI agent ready asset. So MuleSoft MCM model context protocol we can just explore, and then we can tell. They will not ask you the in details, but yeah, you should aware of this topic. Now the last but not the least, so you should be well prepared of if they ask why should we hire you. So beyond development, building resilience and innovations, why should we hire you? So you should tell, okay, I am the expert in API-led connectivity and three-layer architecture to ensure reusability and reduce technical debt. So and I'm future ready as well, proficient in Anypoint code builder and leveraging AI dev agents to accelerate delivery. And performance, I am the performance specialist. So deep understanding I am having it for data weave screaming, Java virtual machine heap management and cloud hub tool. Then reliability, I'm security. I'm focused on security, implementing zero trust through Anypoint service mesh, OAuth, and any other out-of-the-box policies or any automated policy enforcement in API manager. So we can say, okay, I don't just write code, I design systems that don't break, and I ensure that, that my system doesn't break, right? I am comfortable moving between the traditional Anypoint Studio to the new VS Code based Anypoint Code Builder. So my goal is to use AI and modern MCP patterns to make our integration layer a strategic asset, so not just a middleware pipe. So we can tell this so that interviewer can definitely be impressed. So you can just write, okay, you can just tell, okay, I'm comfortable moving, between this traditional endpoint, traditional pattern to new technology trend like VS Code based ACB or MCP, and I can use more MuleSoft vibes to accelerate our development. So that is how you can, explain. So hope you like it, and just go through and multiple times. I would suggest you just go through and then you well prepared. So hope you like it, and all the best. Yeah, thanks. Happy learning. Bye.